Hi there, and welcome to my channel. I'm still calling this channel Work in Progress because that's what we are. Although I am still very much of the mindset that the best way that we can help each other is through sharing our stories of our life journey, our challenges, our successes, our very different stories that are unique to us. If we began to share those with one another, we will, one, discover we're more alike than not alike, but at the same time, we'll be able to come together in a way of having some of the same experiences or having a connection on some level. And I think right now, the way the world is appearing is we're far from coming together. We tend to be more divided still. So for my contribution to this evolutionary process that we all are in, would be to find people that want to have a conversation with me. We will do it through Zoom and we'll have it on this channel, and it can be the conversations again about your particular story and your particular life's journey. So, just before we get started, let me say that the contact information is right below this video. So, if it's you and you're listening and you'd like to have a conversation or even talk about, just discuss having a conversation and what that could entail, etc., then please connect with me through that link below, and I promise I'll get right back to you. And let's see where it goes from here, okay? Alrighty, so what I want to talk about today is our guides. Now, I've been talking about the body being a command center in the last few videos that I've done to kind of show that, you know, we are this spirit having this human experience, and it's all happening within this form, within this body. And nothing is really happening outside of our body, even though it appears to be. Even though we think, or we actually experience, most of us, that there is an external world out there. But it's actually happening from within the body, within this command center, as I've been calling it. So that includes everything, including our guides. Now, who are our guides? Well, some of us will call a guide a higher self. That's common. Or some actually have names. Some have angels that they know are their guides, particular beings or entities that have connected with a person, and that's their guide. You know, it's pretty unique, I think, for each of us. It's not like there's one size fits all. For me, I've mentioned before in other videos that I connected with my guides when I was very, very young, and spoke to them through a keyhole in the door that was to my room, and somehow I knew they were there and they could help me. And so I spoke to them every night, saying I'm not who they say I am, and meaning I was having issues with my parents with emotional abuse, etc. But the point of this conversation is to say that if in my particular case, my guides have been with me from day one, although through different phases of my life, I was not communicating with them sometimes on a regular basis, or not really recognizing my communication with them. So it has, you know, been a journey of back and forth. But I've always known I have guides, and they have always been there at particular challenging times, definitely guiding me, even when I'm not quite aware that that's what's going on. When I look back on a situation, I can see that my guides were definitely there, and they've basically never let me down. I don't have names for them. I do call one of my guides my higher self. That I do. And that's the person that I spoke of when I was talking about the command center. That is the one that's the most connected to me in this earth, in this human experience, and is kind of runs the show. But there's other guides as well, and they talk to me through my writing, just, meditating, quiet time, through all kinds of ways. It's been times where a book on a shelf falls into my hands that I needed to read. You hear these stories all the time. Rather than books right now, my guides are speaking to me through social media, actually. And not always just through that. They do what a lot of us call a download, where I just start to get this information coming in. Now, how this all works with this command center, that everything is happening within our body, it happens either through hearing communication. It is like a voice. It's not my voice. A thought maybe, but not, it's different from a thought of what's the weather going to be, or a fear thought, or any of that. It comes in very direct and very clear. So it is a communication is what is going on. And what I believe is happening, particularly when I get downloads, is I'm interpreting, in a sense, what they're speaking to me about. Now, if I'm directly asking them, like I do in my automatic writing, for some information or help, then it's like as if through my hand, the writing, even though I hear it, it's like taking dictation would be the best thing to say, is then coming through that way. And again, I believe that there's some kind of I don't know what to call it, a way to translate what they're communicating. And I've mentioned before, they communicate with clues. They're not giving us the whole answer to what we want, like fixing something or of an emotional problem. It's through kind of clues. And I have a sense that each of us have kind of a different way that these clues might come in from our higher self. And then there's the like I mentioned, where, a book falls into your hand, or through social media you're hearing them, or through a sign on a car, or, anywhere where you've been kind of looking for help, in a way, looking for an answer to something. And it just comes through really, really clear. Now, in automatic writing, I find it to be very direct, very real, and I don't know how to say it. It's great communication then. And sometimes it's clearer than others, right? So just like any communication, it's how well are we able to listen? That's really, really the case. How can we put aside the false self, if that's where we're hooked up, or the fear takes over, so then we're not available for communication. So there's like any communication with even a person, I guess there's a times that it's better, more directly, easier type of communication. Now, I mentioned for me, in the most recent times, it's through some social media. So I have this situation that I think is going to come up sooner than later, where I need to have some minor eye surgery. And I wanted to be able to research or find out about this surgery. And the surgery is basically for cataracts. I'm not knowing if I need it yet, but I think it's coming. And so I wanted to get kind of educated. I have a real discomfort and distrust of things that are medically inclined, because I've had some not so good experiences. So I tend to be very much of a skeptic, and I want to know what I'm dealing with, and I really depend on my guides. during these times. So as I started getting this idea for myself, then, I think I better get to an eye doctor, and I have to find a new eye doctor because the one that I went to before we moved abroad, I went to since we've come back, and that's not a good fit. Just something changed with him. So I have a friend that I need to get a hold of that I think she likes her optometrist, and anyway, so I have to research that. And then figure out this whole thing about the surgery and about what are they offering, etc. What's available. Anyway, so how this has happened in social media is I've been putting this out there, like I know I need to start to do something about this, but I don't even know where to start. And then I wasn't getting anything from my guides in automatic writing. If I asked, they said not to worry about it at this time. We'll let you know. And that's how it always works. We're going to let you know. And then I'm in a group of women that are women over 50, I think it is, or 55, I forget. Anyway, it's about having natural silver hair, which has nothing to do with the surgery, right? Well, these women, they ask questions about a whole bunch of things, and because they're in this older age group, then this cataract surgery thing would come up. Now, I had never seen anything about this until very, very recently, and somebody posted some questions and said she's about to have the surgery, what should she be looking for, yada yada. And all of this information was coming forth for women that had already had the surgery, women that were going to, and just all kinds of information, which was starting me on this research. Now that was one way, and it's just on my feed, on my Facebook feed. I wasn't looking for it, I didn't search for it, it just came up. And then within a day or so after that came up, out of the blue, on my news feed comes up this doctor who does videos about eye stuff, and he did a whole series about really explaining all the way the cataract surgery works, what is it, what are your choices, and very much in detail. Really didn't feel like it was a sell job at all. He's obviously using social media. I don't even know where he lives or where he's from, where he practices. But becoming, he becomes kind of the authority, I guess you could say. But regardless, the information was very clear and exactly the kind of questions that I was having. And now this has continued to come forward. So there was another doctor on the other day that I listened to that really talked about how do you make the decision of what do you want to have done, and then what should you expect from your decision. And so I feel like I'm really getting very, very good, clear information about this. Now, I asked my guides, when should I start pursuing this? And they said, you don't need to worry about it at all right now. Maybe sometime in March we can look at this, but you can just kind of get your head around it. And for me, that means get my fear factor down, get comfortable with this idea so that I can be open to hear my communication from my guides, because I know they're going to put the right people in place for me. They always have, and I know they're going to do it now, but I could, through my own, what do I want to say, if I'm not listening, if I'm coming out of just fear, then I'm not going to make a good decision. That I know. So I really get to a place of trusting my guides. So this is a recent example, I think it's a pretty good one, of how we begin to follow or listen to hear our guides, really is what I want to call it. This is how because we have to listen, right? And our guides are available for everything. Absolutely everything. I mean, the truth is, the guides are setting everything up. They're running the show based on the contract, we can call it, or the script that we came in with for the type of experiences we want to have in this particular lifetime. And there's nobody here, there's no doer here. There's just this spirit that's having the experience, and there's no false self. So it really is our guides that are putting everything in place. Now that doesn't mean that because we're not the doer or we're not the false self, that we don't have the full experience as the what some call the observer or the witness. We do. So we have that full experience, just like you do in virtual reality. Although I've never had one of those cameras or whatever they call. Never done virtual reality, but we do it every day. So I should say we do, because that's what it's like, where you actually feel like you're right there. You feel, if you have dental work done, you're feeling if there's pain involved, or you feel pain in a tooth and that's why you go to the dentist. So we have the full-on experience. This is kind of where the tricky part comes in. But if we recognize that we're the witness, then we don't go into this fear factor when we think we're the pain. We think we're the suffering. We think we're this character having this done. That adds a whole other spectrum, a whole other way to experience that we don't need. That's not good. That's where the fear comes in, and that's where the resistance comes in. And because we come in and we forget who we are, then we attach to this character that is being played out for this particular lifetime. So there's a real almost an art to and realizing we're not the character. It happens through different ways for some of us, I believe. Some people kind of get this. Some people aren't even on a spiritual path. I know some of the near-death experiencers, they come back and they get how this whole thing works, and they're living their life now from that point of view. And maybe, they're living with some disabilities that happened in their near-death experience. So they're still having that, but somehow they seem, at least from what I listened to a lot of those interviews, I'm very curious about it, they seem to be having a better experience of doing this, having one foot in each place, so to speak. And they're not really coming from fear. And so that's one type. There's the other type that has been, like me, working on this stuff for umpteen years. When I say stuff, working on my becoming aware of who I am and what this whole life is about. If any of you listen to Eckhart Tolle, he speaks about this exact thing, talking about the pain. He calls it the pain body, which is the suffering entity that isn't real but we attach to. Wayne Dyer was the one that said we're spirits having a human experience. So this is not like a new idea. It's been around a long time, but it just depends where you are in your particular spiritual development, we could call it, how you experience things. So most of us, I believe today, are very much still in the process of kind of working this out. Many of us recognize that we're going through a very challenging time. Most of us feel like we've never been through a time like this before, where we can look at the world and know it's absolutely insane and something's not right, and yet not know that there's not a fix that we can do to fix it. We only can do what we can do is work within ourselves, and as we can work within ourselves and really get connected to our inner world, get connected to our higher self and the experience as a human, then this is where the help comes in. So, we're here on this planet right now at this time because we chose to be. because it's never been easy on this planet. It's not like easy peasy, no. But now it's really challenging. So we're here because we chose to be here. Now, when we choose to be here, we're not in form, we're spirit, and having a really nice time being spirit. And so, however, we want this experience. That's why any of us come here. We want the adventure, we want the experience. And in this case, I believe, that we agreed to come and to participate and to help out in different ways through this evolutionary time, through this human consciousness going through an evolution. It's a big, major evolution. Nobody really knows how long this is going to take. It could take 10 years and it could take 100 years. Hard to say. We don't know. We don't, but we do know. What we do know is things are shifting. And maybe it's going to go through phases. We're going through phases of letting go of attachments to things that no longer serve us, letting go of certain behaviors or patterns that we have that no longer serve us. For me, it's definitely been a pattern of letting go of being a people pleaser. That's been huge for me. And not to say I still can't fall into that situation, but pretty hard not to be aware of it. So that's something that I have come through. In fact, I have to say, COVID was a big, and this is where my guides have told me, COVID was a great opportunity for me to really get in touch with all the stuff I'd not dealt with. I think I've mentioned in other videos that because I grew up in emotional abuse, of course I didn't know that's what it was then, I ended up, for whatever reason, my thing was, I talked to my guides, which was the keyhole in the door, every night as a very young child, to keep saying I'm not who they say I am. Who they said I was stupid and not good enough, not smart enough, not anything enough, right? And so something inside of me felt, no, that's not who I am. So from the time I was about 5 or 6 is when this began, this talking to the keyhole. And then as I grew up into young adulthood, my thing was I'm going to prove to myself, because I knew I couldn't prove that to them anything. I didn't care if I proved to them anything, but I'm going to prove to myself that I'm not who they say I am. And that started me out on a journey of overachieving, I suppose, in some cases, but definitely following my essence of what I was good at doing, what I really loved doing. So my whole time of working, my whole years of owning businesses and, the whole career thing, I loved. And I really excelled in many areas in that proved to me that I'm not who they said I am. And what my guides have told me now, in the more recent times, is that was good, because that was a way that I wanted to live. That's the creativity that I wanted to experience. However, when COVID hit, I took a nosedive into all this programming and all these belief systems that were still very much operating within me there. And I thought, because I'd gone to lots of therapy and I did a lot of personal development and I was very engaged all the time in something about personal growth through all many years. So I'm thinking, well, I've worked through all this stuff, and then COVID hits and I go into such fear. And this fear then starts to bring up all this old crap of what the programming of who I was told I was, let's say, that I'd never really worked through. I just didn't. I took that other road of proving to myself that the experience, the external world, would prove to me I'm not who they said I am. So everything else lay dormant, so to speak. And sure, I worked through, different levels of this stuff. So it wasn't 100% all dormant, but a lot of it was still operating, kind of under the radar. And so this is when COVID happened, and I freaked out because I had all of this past stuff, my childhood. It was like I was reliving this entire childhood of all the not wanting to be who they said I was kind of thing, and all these programs. And that's when I recognized my people-pleasing aspect, because that was huge. That's how I was getting surviving, let's call it that, with this whole family dynamic that was going on. And so, you know, when it came up like a atomic bomb is what it felt like inside of me. I don't even know what an atomic bomb feels like, but I don't even know how to describe this. It just blew up. I was just devastated and really wondered many times if I could live through this pain, the suffering that was going on, the fear. Oh, the fear factor was just over the top. I mean, you know, I'm a person that experiences a lot of stuff, kind of, they call it very sensitive to my environment, to energies, basically, just energies. And so I feel through my life, I always feel I can feel other people's energy. I'm just that type. And like I said, very sensitive to my environment. And so when all this came up to a sensitive individual, I really just didn't know if I could survive. And to be honest, I didn't even want to many times. Many days I thought, get me out of here. I don't want to be here. This is too hard. If I signed up for this, I made a mistake. You got to let me get out of here, get me out of this body. I can't be here right now. But some way, somehow, little by little, and that's when I actually discovered automatic writing and kind of got help from my guides in these subtle ways, because I wasn't really even available for it, because I was so caught up in the whole experience of all this crap coming up in so many different ways. So I had a major learning experience, and what else to call it, on so many levels of really discovering me, not meaning me, this human, but me, the spirit, having this human experience, and discovering the patterns that had been so deeply put in place. And now as I became aware of them, and again, this happened through all kinds of ways, because during COVID, I did start following a lot of spiritual people on YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff, social media, who I felt I connected with. I'd already been a follower of Eckhart Tolle's stuff, so I was already definitely in that world. But I really started spending a lot more time, because that's all I had was time, right? We were at home. Really, my husband and I both took very seriously, mine strictly out of a pattern of fear, maybe his too. Really did not get engaged with people, you know, didn't go to any gatherings, family gatherings, just didn't, still have been very, very cautious that way. But in this period of time, what I did learn is how unimportant some of this stuff had been. And that when I look back on my life, I lived a very rich and, I don't mean rich like money rich, but very rich in experiences. And had a lot of experiences that were amazing and awesome, and met tons of people and lived all kinds of different places, and had pretty much every experience that one, I think, would want to have. You know, not that they were all so good, but most were quite exciting, I think. And especially from where I came from, I would think that was amazing. And then all of my work experiences and all of my creativity and starting businesses. And so I felt like, no, you know, by the time this COVID thing hit, I had felt like, wow, I've had a very active life. So in a way, I was okay, really okay with not having that activity. In fact, before COVID hit, I was already in that kind of mindset. And, and moving back to the area that we left when we went abroad, you don't come back to the same. It's not the same at all, even though I thought that's what it was going to be. We just pick up from where we left off, but that's not how it is. I've changed, it changed. So there's a big adjustment that has to go on, and that was a good thing. I can see that as a good thing. So as I'm now at this point in my life, moving forward, I'm moving in a more getting back in touch with my particular the experience that I want to have way. I've just never been a person that followed the crowd for some reason. It just, because I didn't want to or I had issues with what people were doing. No, it just was me. That wasn't me. Mine was kind of always marching to my own drum for a lot of different reasons. I didn't even think about that's what I was doing, but I knew I was not very often following the crowd. And for sure when COVID hit, I definitely understood not following the crowd in that way. And now, being back here, and it looks like COVID's kind of going to not be so in the moment of our lives, I have to look and go, okay, well, now what? And the now what seems to me, I'm not going to be following the crowd again for, people that are retired and how do I want to say this? I'm not following that crowd. And I think, here's the deal, we're all unique. We all are very unique unto ourselves, so to speak. Yet, there's a whole bunch of things we have in common for sure as humans. But when we really get to listen to our guides, hear our intuition and follow it, then we begin to realize and have an experience of a unique situations, unique, I don't know what to call it, their experiences, that we came into this, incarnated into this body to have, to learn, to teach. I don't know, it all is very unique to each person that came in as the spirit with a particular script or contract that they wanted to have while, we're in this body. So, what I want to encourage you to do, why all this talk about guides and sharing, the sharing I just feel sometimes can help with understanding or, examples, in other words, with trying to help somebody else maybe understand what I'm saying. And my best examples are just my own experience. I don't know anybody else's experience really deeply. So that's why the sharing of an experience, and that's why I have this idea of having conversations with others to share experiences. But what I want to suggest is this. Hold on. Get dry. Is that you start to allow or open to the idea of hearing your guides and being in communication with them. And it just starts as an intention. That's it. If you just make an intention, you can speak to your guides, I do all the time, asking for help. It's remembering to ask for help. People don't do this. We don't like to ask for help, right? It's kind of like a weakness to ask for help, but it's truly not. But that's the way we're kind of as this human species. So because we don't ask for help out there in this world that we're having experience in, we tend not to remember or not to think to ask for help from our guides, but that's crazy because that's not helpful for us. As soon as you ask for help, you get it. That's what's so awesome. Like with me, with this whole eye thing, I just started, I was getting real frustrated and kind of fearful and going through all the futuring of what this could be like and blah, 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 and didn't want to do it. Anyway, that's my thing. And then I started remembering to ask for help, and I did it verbally out loud, to say, my guides, I need help. Come, guys, show me stuff. Help me out here. I'm getting really crazed over this possibility of surgery, and I'm going through old patterns, and I can feel them, and I don't know how to let them go. And I just said it all, and I said, please, please help. And within a few days, stuff started coming in, like I mentioned, through social media, because I'm there a lot. So that was a good way to connect with me. And then the downloads and the automatic writing, and it just continues. But we've got to remember to ask for help. And if you're new at this idea and you haven't really felt like you've been in strong communication or good communication with your guides, then you start a little at a time. First of all, you don't have to believe it. Just give it a shot. It's not like you have to believe it, but just start with an intention to try it and say, well, I have nothing to lose. Let me see what happens. And then stay open so that you can notice when the clues come in, where they're trying to get your attention. They're always with you, and they're always guiding you. You just don't know it. They're there. You can't, it's happening. That's how it works. They are guiding this lifetime. But when you can actually realize it and get in contact with them through communication, through having them really communicate to you, and you begin to really feel what that feels like, it's huge. It's just huge, because then that's where you go for making decisions. That's where you go for getting some help through difficult times, and that's where you begin to see stuff showing up that is really there for you, in your best interest, right? And sometimes it comes in not looking like good. It can look like, oh my God, how did this happen? Or, oh my God, what happened here? But that's us doing this future thing, because everything has a timing and everything has a purpose. So, let's say you have some money concerns and you're feeling like, oh my God, I don't know if I can afford this or that. I mean, most of us today probably have money concerns, right? That's actually what's going on a lot right now. But what you have to do is just knowing that however it will be worked out in exactly the way it needs to be worked out. And your imagination of what could or couldn't happen is just BS. It means nothing. It's just taking up time, making you crazy. So this is where you begin to really start to depend more on the communication with your guides, and know at that time, okay, I can't figure this out right now. I don't know where the money is coming from, but I just know the whole thing's going to work out, and I give it over to you guides because you're there anyway, and it's already been given over to you. It's just me recognizing that, and there's a peace that comes with that, a peaceful feeling of relief. Okay, we have to work to get there, because the mind and the thoughts and all the junk that goes on, the false self, they're all very busy trying to get our attention. So we have to really stay kind of focused, and again, an intention and a commitment to really want to get to know your guides. So I think that's about all I can say about that right now, and probably I've repeated myself a few times with the same idea, but hopefully this has helped somebody, right? That's all I really look for, is I hope it helps one person. I'm happy. So maybe it's helped nobody yet. Maybe it'll help somebody a year or two from now that listens to this. That would be great too. So before I sign off, I'd like to remind you to like the video if you did, and to subscribe, and if you want to know when videos are coming out, press that little doodad button next to subscribe. And one last reminder that my contact information is below this video, and if you'd like to have a conversation, or just a conversation to maybe have a conversation on Zoom and see if we can get that going, I'd love to hear from you. And I'd also love to hear any comments. Please, please, please leave some comments. Would really be appreciative of that below. And that way we can also continue to have conversations or continue to expand on this idea, for instance. And maybe you have an experience that you've had that you could share, just share it in a comment. That would be great too, you know? And then somebody else might comment, you know, that works, the threads work. So that is another way that you and I could communicate. However that works, I'm open, okay? In the meantime, I'm going to keep talking about these different things, and it's obviously coming from my particular experience until we can start to get some interviews or conversations going on that can start to expand what we're up against in the world, how do we deal with it, and you know, who knows where this could go. It could go all kinds of places. So in the meantime, take care of yourself, and you know, be kind to yourself. I try to do this now all the time as well, because I don't know how to do that real well, and I think most of us don't know how to be kind to ourselves, so that's something else we can work on. And you know, try to get outside, because if we've been kind of stuck in the winter. In California, winter isn't that bad, but it's really been cold winter, so getting in nature can really be helpful as well. So that's it at this time, and I'll say until next time, I'm going to click off, and you know sometimes this click takes a few clicks. We'll see what happens.